This episode of the What's Happening Delco podcast is brought to you by Delco Meets for Business. Check us out on Meetup, register, and attend one of our fantastic networking meetings, which we meet on the first and third Thursday at the Brick House in Ridley Park, and the second and fourth Thursday at the Upper Crust in Newtown Square. We look forward to seeing you there. What's happening, Delco? I'm Rich Shane, and welcome to the What's Happening Delco podcast. Today, I'm joined by Sean Bruton of Lunch Break Vintage. Sean, welcome to the podcast.
What's up, Rich? How you doing?
What's up is what's going on in Delco. What is Lunch Break Vintage?
Lunch Break Vintage. It's something that I started almost 3 years ago. I've been doing it for a long time, but it's a vintage clothing, fashion, and nostalgia shop in Swarthmore, PA. Kind of got a little bit of everything from all decades.
How did you get started? You said 3 years ago. How did this all start for you?
So I've been thrifting and collecting for a long time. I'd say, close to 20 years, probably college time. I was in logistics for close to 18 years. And to kind of get away from the office, what I did was I would go out on my lunch breaks and go thrifting and hit flea markets and just kind of get a little bit of a time away, a little bit of a break. So I did logistics for 18 plus years. And then during pandemic, I got laid off. I never really did anything with the finds that I would, get when I would go out on my breaks. So, when I was searching for jobs, I kind of got everything down from the attic and was like, all right, let me just start an Instagram page, kind of keep my mind off the job search. And 3 years later, I have a storefront and it's my full-time gig. So
what are some of those things you seek out that are those finds that you put up in your attic?
So it's a little bit of everything: pop culture, sports, music. It's mostly vintage fashion, vintage clothing, old flannels, old Hawaiian shirts, weird, unique fashion accessories, denim, things like that.
Are these things at your shop that you consign, or are these things that are brought in that you just resell based on what you find and discover?
So, yeah, I think that's the beauty of my shop. Everything that is in my shop is brought in by me for the most part. I would say a vintage shop is different than a thrift shop. I'm out curating my shop and bringing down finds each and every week. I'm washing all the clothing. I'm repairing, buttons, doing things like that. But yeah, I mean, it could be an old Eagles t-shirt from the 80s. It could be, an old band t-shirt from the 70s. I have about 150 t-shirts on my rack right now. And then just in season, fashion for right now.
All right. So I have to ask, what has been that, grand slam find or some of those great finds that you're standing there or looking at it and saying to yourself, I can't believe somebody's selling this?
Well, it's the thrill of the find is definitely the best part of what I do. Going out and, finding a gem every day is different. Monday through Wednesday, I'm out kind of scouring all over the place. I'm meeting with collectors of things, hearing stories about why they collected and how long they've had it for. But yeah, I would say the home run. I mean, I had a USA Dream Team jacket in the shop. I think it was last summer. I just couldn't believe I was looking at it, to be honest. From the Dream Team, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, stuff like that. That was definitely one of the most unique things I've found. But the cool thing about being in Swarthmore, PA, is there's so much history here. And, every other week, I feel like I'm finding something from the 60s or something from the 50s in Swarthmore. There's just so much history in this town. So,
are you seeing trends? Are there out there in, let's say, vintage clothing, vintage fashion that becomes trendy or is on the way in or on the way out?
Yeah, so I'd say that's definitely on my radar. Vintage is I guess, pretty in right now. You see all the clothing that, Target's putting out, or Shein, or different things like that. They're old graphics. They're old, copycats of vintage T-shirts that were already printed. But yeah, I mean, it's just something that you kind of have to take a look at and see. Honestly, it's all pop culture driven too. So you get a celebrity that wants to wear, let's say, a '90s grunge T-shirt. All of a sudden, these kids want to go out and find something similar, find that T-shirt. So it is definitely pop culture driven as well.
Yeah, it really surprises me looking at somebody that, let's say, is somewhere around 12, 13, and they're wearing Pearl Jam stuff on their shirt, right?
Yeah, it's great.
I see, and we've talked about clothing, but I see behind you, you have other things, other items that you have in your store. It's not just clothing, is it?
No, not at all. Right now I'm looking at a shelf that has old baseball cards and hockey cards from the '90s and stuff like that. I have a crew of kids in this town that come down and buy packs, which reminds me of when I was growing up, going to a corner store, getting a pack for a couple bucks, riding your bike. And then, I have a book section. I have a comic book section. I just put in a candy section, which was kind of cool, old time candy. But yeah, it's a little bit of everything. Then I have local artists in here as well, who create jewelry or who do art, who create T-shirts, just kind of a little bit of everything for all ages.
I believe what's important about what you have displayed and for sale in your shop is that you're taking a snapshot of history, but you're also preserving history, that it's just not going to end up in a landfill somewhere. It can be repurposed, but you're finding that there's always something for everybody that may want a connection to something in the past, right?
100%. Definitely the best part of my job. I like to think when people do come down to the shop, it's a unique space. It's a basement unit, so it's very, walking into almost another time period. And I take pride in that, the way that it's decorated, the way that it's displayed. And yeah, I mean, it's something from every decade. That's the big thing also with, vintage clothing, secondhand shopping. You're kind of preserving, things going into a landfill, helping, a little bit, with that, in a small footprint. But, there's a lot of fast fashion right now. People are buying things from, online websites, and everything's just mass produced and the quality's not there. And that's the beauty of vintage clothing is, the quality is there, and these things last for, 30, 40 years.
This started out as just lunch break vintage. You going out on your lunch break to discover and find things. Where do you see this journey taking you in the next year or so, couple of years, to what we can expect with your dreams and goals?
Honestly, it's a good question. I take it on a week-to-week basis. I'm having so much fun doing this. This is now my full-time job. I've been lucky enough to be able to call this my full-time job now. I would love to grow the business, possibly maybe get a bigger space at some point, but I'm working at my own pace. Everything that I've done so far has been very organic, and I've built up my customer base in Swarthmore. And that's the one thing I think works for me. And the best thing that ever happened to me was finding this space in Swarthmore, working along some great merchants in town. There's a lot this town has to offer, and I think a lot of people in Delco don't necessarily know. So that's definitely part of my mission as well, is to drive as many people into this town as possible.
That's one of the things that we love about this podcast and what's happening in Delco is that we meet people from all walks of life and that are doing things like you that we haven't met yet, and now we have. And it makes living in Delco more exciting, more fun, more purposeful. So, kudos to you, to what you're doing as a representative, as an ambassador to Swarthmore, but to the vintage community and to your business. How do people find you? What are your hours? How do people, get their, desired vintage something or other?
Sure. I'm open Thursday through Sunday. I'm at 13B Park Avenue in Swarthmore. Um, I'd say the most up to date would be my Instagram page, which is lunchbreak_vintage. I'm posting there throughout the day, all the time, things that I find throughout the week. Sometimes stuff doesn't even make it into my shop. It sells, as soon as I post it. I think that's the kind of the beauty of what I do is I have, weekly customers now that come down to see like the finds that I've come across over the week, and they sell quick, depending on, what it is. And then there's also a Facebook group as well, that I post to on there. And yeah, another website, same, going back to Swarthmore, Merchants of Swarthmore has an Instagram. We just started that a couple months ago. Just a community of merchants that want to see each other's business succeed. There's a lot of cool things in this town. There's a concert venue. There's a really great coffee shop. There's a pizza places, a brewery. There's just so much, gift shops. There's a lot of stuff to do in this town. So I think, coming on here was one of my main goals, was to kind of spotlight that as well.
Sean, who mentors you? Who inspires you?
Wow, that's a good question. I have a lot of mentors. My parents, first and foremost. I grew up, I learned the value of hard work from both of my parents. And that kind of, I started working when I was probably 13. Wasn't probably supposed to be working, but I was, and that's what I did. And then my wife as well. She's, actually somebody that you've met through this podcast as well. But the work that she does in her community is inspiring. And then I have two daughters who that's the driving force of what I do, to try to make a living and make their life good.
You're on your way to the shop. You've got some new vintage to either wash or put up on the rack, and you have a cheesesteak craving. Where are you going?
Jeez, in the morning. Wow. Well, coming from a Springfield guy, I will go Thunderbird, seeded roll, a little bit of whiz wit.
How about pizza? For you and the family, is there a go-to?
So our go-to, same deal, Springfield. We go to Bella Roma. That's usually our Friday night pizza spot. But I will say there is a up-and-coming pizza place in Swarthmore. It's called Divine's Pizza. It's run by the people at Hobbs Coffee. It's a small batch pizza. They just did, Friday night kind of pies during pandemic, and that's probably one of the better pizzas I've had in a long time. So
you're out and about and you have a convenience store need. Where are you going? Royal Farms or Wawa?
Wawa, 100%.
Sean, how do you describe Delco to somebody who's either never been here or has never heard of Delco?
So that's interesting as well. I've had this conversation so many times. I would say it's a community of people where you can find a connection anywhere you go. So any town in Delco, you can find somebody who knows somebody, and I think that's the beauty of living in Delco is there's just so many different connections and so many different people who all know each other somehow, whether it's from a random event or a school they went to or music that they're into. There's always a connection you could find somewhere.
You have somebody coming in from out of town, friends or family, and you want to give them or take them to that Delco experience. Where are you sending them, or where are you taking them?
Wow. Okay. Delco experience.
Besides outfitting them in the latest vintage, of course, but then where are you going?
Sure. Delco experience. Yeah, that's a tough one. Plenty of bars in the area. Let's see. Guess we could take them for a drink at Saxer's or O'Connell's in Springfield. Take them to a show at Warehouse 3 in Swarthmore afterwards, and then maybe hit Dairy Cottage on a late night, afterwards.
What's fun about this part of the podcast that I enjoy is just watching, like, your face lit up. You're kind of going through the motions and thinking about this trip or where you're sending somebody. But some of those things to me probably have some wonderful memories for you, either growing up or just some things you've experienced along the way. But just watching your face smile and light up about that, that's great for me to watch. And I know the listeners can't see that, but that's I think one of the things that makes Delco unique to what we have here. It's the up and comers, the new places like Hobbs that you said. It's the old places that have established these traditions that people go to, that they've had as children, or have taken their kids to. That there's nothing duplicatable about that. And I know other people in certain parts of the world or the country can say, "Oh, we have that," but it's not Delco-esque. And I think that's what makes it stand out.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, we all have stories. We all have memories of different places that either, aren't around in Delco anymore. And you could talk about them for, 45 minutes to an hour about, what that fun time that you had at Bennigan's on Baltimore. I don't know why I said Bennigan's. I have no idea why. But yeah, things like that. I grew up in Delco my whole life. I think there's something to be said about people not leaving here. I think it's a good thing. I think some people kind of gravitate towards, well, they've never experienced anything else besides Delco, but it's like, there's a reason why everybody kind of stays here. So,
Sean, is there anything we haven't talked about on the podcast today? Anything you want our listeners to know more about you or Lunch Break Vintage?
Not necessarily, just just Swarthmore, PA in general. I've said it a few different times. I think we are a hidden gem here in Delco. When I lived in Springfield, it was just Swarthmore was always a path through for me to get to Ridley or to wherever else I was going. And there's this, cute little town in here that not a lot of people from Delco or know about yet. And I think we're on the verge of, doing something really great. And to be a part of that is just fantastic. And to own a small business in this town is the perfect fit for me. So,
Sean, if I could, you are going to get my vote for mayor of Swarthmore, and I'm sure that campaign season will be ramping up. So yeah, definitely, Sean Bruton for mayor of Swarthmore. You're definitely shouting it out and bringing people and attention to Swarthmore. Thank you so much for being a friend of What's Happening Delco. And look, if you're looking for the latest vintage, really cool stuff, check out Lunch Break Vintage and, be out and about in Delco and, show what you connect with. Right, Sean?
Yep. Sounds great.
Thank you so much. Thanks for taking your time to be on the podcast today.
Yeah. Thanks, Rich.
Hey, it's Rich. Thank you so much for being a listener to the What's Happening Delco podcast. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to learn more about the people and businesses in our community. I have been a real estate agent for over 25 years, working with first-time home buyers to last-time home sellers. As a listener of the podcast, my gift to you is a complimentary 1-year American Home Shield home warranty. This is for buyers and sellers that I help. If you're looking to move anywhere in the United States, I have you covered with an amazing network of real estate agents. I look forward to hearing from you. My direct line is 215-313-3777, or you can email me at rshaneremax@comcast.net. Oh, by the way, I am never too busy for any of your referrals.